Clarence Thomas, kind of a bad guy. News broke yesterday that he essentially did not disclose that he'd sold a series of properties to Harlan Crow, Club for Growth billionaire, who he just is so close with. And then, so that just came out in ProPublica. I would imagine that there's more stuff coming because he essentially stopped disclosing his relationship with this guy in 2004 when the LA Times came out with their own kind of like expose about the disclosures. Then he just stopped recording it and seemingly ramped up his financial connection with this Nazi memorabilia collecting billionaire.
Yeah, I thought in the United States of America, it was okay for black men to be friends with white men. That's what I thought. But turns out, I guess we've moved beyond that. I guess we're going back in time. You know, Clarence Thomas is a baller. Okay, he was going on the lamest, I mean the absolute lamest vacations known to man with Harlan Crow. Have you seen the photos? I mean, they were literally like, at first I thought they were doing like Jeffrey Epstein shit. And then I realized like, oh no, Harlan Crow actually is just like, he's a billionaire or whatever. So like, of course he travels in Jeffrey Epstein style, like Jeffrey Epstein style, like yachts and cruises and private jets and whatever. But they're like going to, you know, Thailand together. And then it's like a family photo. And then Clarence Thomas and Ginny are like on the side. Yeah. So at first I thought to myself, like, oh, they're doing like shadowy sex stuff. You know what I mean? They're doing like butt stuff for sure. And then I saw those family photos and I was like, oh my God, it's way worse. I think they're like legit friends. Yeah. Which is very weird.
It's not that weird though, right? I mean, they have the same values, but friends don't buy. I mean, again, as a homeowner, right? Let's return to this. You're one of the people who would understand.
That's why I'm defending them. Me and Harlan Crow are very similar.
You guys are. I mean, like that's one thing that you have in common. Do you also have a house that you purchased from a Supreme Court justice that you rent out to her family members?
I do not. I'm working on it. You know, I thought to myself, Ketanji Brown Jackson, she's probably going to be a communist. Obviously, Joe Biden is pretty much FDR reincarnated. So I suspected that like his Supreme Court pick was probably going to be one that reflects my values. I mean, I am very similar to Harlan Crow in the sense that I also have memorabilia of things that I despise, like immediately Master Chief, bad guy. Okay, very bad guy. Have his helmet right there. I look to it sometimes and ponder and think to myself, like, you know, this is the great evil that he did against Legion. And then, of course, I have the USSR Ushanka back there. I look back at that to say, like, wow, I mean, just awful stuff that those guys did. And then the Antifa book as well. Like all the stuff that I have back there, pretty much, you know, just like Harlan Crow has the you know, the signed copy of Mein Kampf.
Yeah. That's a pretty rare piece of memorabilia. You have to go out of your way to buy the signed copy of Mein Kampf, I would say.
Yeah. No, I think he just really likes Hitler's writings and what he delivered for the medium was really huge in like racial screeds, I think. I
mean, the prose is just out of control.
That's why he got it.
He got it for the prose. And the other thing, do we have this of Charles Murray? I'm sure you saw this, Hasan. But Charles Murray, known like skull measurer, race science guy, a bell curve author, dedicated not one book, but 2 books to Harlan Crow. So like
that's my favorite.
Yeah,
that's my favorite thing. Like when you're rich, like it's so weird. Like it's like you're a rich guy. Why don't you do like fun shit? Like why is it that you're so hyper focused on like, you know, fascist stuff and like race perverts that you pay money to like write books about?
Because they're weird, you know, sniveling losers like that. So here, I mean, even the way human accomplishment, the pursuit of excellence in the arts and sciences, 800 BC to 1950. First of all, anybody that like does sweeping historical books that aren't focused on a specific time and try to like make grand claims about humanity in large swaths kind of a red flag in and of itself, because you end up just whittling racial and ethnic groups down to crude stereotypes, although that's Charles Murray's kind of thing. But here it is.
Yeah.
To Erwin, Stelzer, Charles Kraudheimer, and Harlan Crow. It turns out
that's the Avengers squad of like
yeah.
the most...
No, he says, turns out I have brothers after all. That's what he calls them. Charles Murray and Harlan Crow, bros.
Charles Kraudheimer, didn't he die recently? Like he died a couple years back.
Yeah, he's dead.
Yeah,
he was. Yeah, I mean, he was something else. You know, great. Love giving Pulitzer prizes to guys like this. I think one of my favorite parts about I would say Murray's work is that it just like is so easy to just like look up and absolutely eviscerate with like one study conducted in India in between like you know, the noticeable drop off of IQ for you know, during famine season versus when you know, people are eating properly. Immediately it's just like you eviscerate the genetic component of like race and IQ, and then you don't need to write that book. But of course, when there are billionaires like Harlan Crow out there who will fund you, you will constantly write books like that, because at a certain point, I don't know if it's for the love of the game or if it's for money or maybe both, which of course brings me back to Clarence Thomas. Everyone is talking about how this is like, you know, this guy's getting greased. His wheels are getting greased by Harlan Crow. But I also kind of feel like, I mean, and I feel you'll agree with me on this. They're just, you know, they have the same opinions. Like Clarence Thomas wouldn't have gotten to the position that he got to if he didn't believe the freak shit that he believes. You know what I mean? If he wasn't severely interested in like deregulation, playing a profoundly important role in hyper focusing on culture war wedge issues, backed by the Republican Party, like he would not be a Supreme Court justice if he wasn't the perfect guy for that, right?
Yeah, so, I mean, it becomes kind of like hard to the lines get a little bit blurred, where how much of his ideology is informed by these rich guys essentially paying him and validating him, and how much of it is like organic. Because I feel like part of it too is these guys carry water for right-wing reactionary BS, not just because they're true believers, but also because they're reinforced with money all the time. All the money's on that side, and so it's easy to be like, this lifestyle is great for me, and all the stuff I'm saying is validated based on the prosperity gospel, essentially.
Yeah, the way I see it, I think like he probably will look at or suggest cases that like maybe Harlan Crow's friends might be interested in, right? But other than that, I think he's already conditioned to be like the Republican Party's weapon. I mean, that's what the Supreme Court has always been. That's what the Supreme Court will always be. It's always a political tool. It represents the two-party divide. And for the most part, I think everyone that endlessly pontificates on the Supreme Court's like institution and it's you know, what it represents in American democracy is a fucking silly person. It's just, of course, it's always been partisan. But I think, and this is my suggestion, maybe there's another element to the story that we're not looking into. What if Harlan Crow is really into horse porn?
That's a good point. I hadn't considered that yet.
Like they're united on ideological. Sorry to cut you off. I was being a misogynist. No. I apologize. Because they're united on like, you know, they're both. You know, they're both capitalist, rich perverts that love talking about tort reform or whatever the fuck Republicans talk about behind closed doors when they're not talking about race science. I suspect, since we know what we know about Clarence Thomas and his interests that pertain to bestiality, allegedly, and horse porn, maybe Harlan Crow's into that too. Maybe he saw the Anita Hill testimony and was like, "That's my shit. That's my guy. That's a lifelong friend I just made right there."
Yeah, maybe you kind of just judge their trips by appearances. You don't know what's going on that super yacht. There could be some freaky shit happening over there, Hasan.
Absolutely.
Why are you being ageist?
No, I think that those guys do freaky stuff regardless.
I mean,
for sure. You know, blood work, that sort of thing.
Yeah, they're all repressed, and that makes for the craziest crap here.